In 1975, four nurses walked into Ward 6B on a quiet night shift and were never seen again. No blood, no footprints, no exit. The door was sealed, a hand-painted warning left behind, and for 45 years no one dared open it. Until now, when the lock finally breaks, what waits inside pulls a reporter and a cold case detective into a maze of missing pages, hidden doors, and choices made after midnight. Every clue raises a better question. Every answer costs something. Present day, hard hats crowd a dim corridor. A crowbar wedges into a seam of rust. The sign scrawled by hand is almost a dare. 6B, do not open contamination. Metal screams. The door breaks. Dust pours out like smoke and eats the flashlight beams. Light rakes iron beds. Their springs like rib cages. Yellowed curtains hang like stale sunlight. At the far end, for nurse uniforms wait on hooks with their badges still clipped. Beside them, a Super 8 camera and a tin labeled "Open when safe." Label is neat. Cut to 1975. St. Agnes Mercy Hospital glows. Wax floors mirror humming lights. A Motown tune flirts with sneaker squeaks and the sharp ping of pagers. Mags O'Leary walks the corridor like a steady beat. 33, widow, Vietnam nurse. She reads a chart, frowns, and taps the pocket of her apron 3 times, her warning to herself. The chart carries a correction in the neat, cold hand of Dr. Edwin Harrow. Diagnosis amended, medication adjusted, reason unclear. Mags files it away, eyes drifting to the isolation ward. Keep your eyes open, she tells the team. Linda Collins bounces by the station, engagement ring clinking the metal edge when she laughs. A Polaroid hangs from her neck. Click. Ruth posing stern with a thermometer. Click. Gigi mocking a poster about hand washing. Linda sticks a yellow note on the med board. Room 412 thinks he's on a boat. Talk about calm seas. Ruth Delgado moves like a hush people trust. She folds a tiny crane from gauze and tucks it into the pocket of a new mother who trembles for no reason except life. For stubborn luck, Ruth says. Her Spanish edges the words like a prayer. Gigi Rousseau rolls in late on a midnight blue Honda, helmet under one arm. Smile that says, so what? She tosses a coin heads. She takes the east wing. Tails, she's with Mags on 6B. Tails, destiny, she says, breath fog in the locker mirror as she pins her cap. She calls the dumbwaiter a ghost elevator and shakes it until it rattles. See? It coughs when you lie to it. Across the street, the Horseshoe Diner glows in neon. The grill man flips pancakes for bar stragglers who swear they ordered eggs. Everyone at St. Agnes measures time by that neon horseshoe. When it blinks, shift change is close. When it steadies, you're deep in the tunnel. The patient of the same song in different keys. A steel worker with a back like a bridge. A teenager who swallowed shame with pills. A woman in labor, no family, no ring, no insurance. Admitted under a wrong address Mags can't verify. For 1 sharp hour, her name vanishes from the intake log. The clerk shrugs. Printer jam, probably. The hospital does not own a printer. Mags taps her pocket. 1, 2, 3. Sister Margaret Caldwell signs a form with a small, precise smile. She carries authority like an umbrella, ready before rain. Protocols. She says whenever nurses ask why a door that used to open now sticks, or why laundry carts roll at odd hours, we comply or we compromise, and we do not compromise. Her rosary clicks like a metronome. By 10, the floor settles into routine. Linda photographs a lopsided cake of night orderly left. Ruth fixes a pump with a hairpin, then keeps a man talking about fishing, so his pressure stays tame. Gigi bribes the break room with contraband chocolate and claims it was seized from a violent vending machine. Mags writes a stern note to Harrow she'll never send. Near midnight, the oddness gathers. The clock in 6BS corridor hesitates, then groans back to life. Behind it, a panel yawns and whispers shut again as if the wall has taken a breath. A laundry cart squeals past with no one pushing. Then Wall from maintenance appears, out of breath, waving a wrench. Brakes, he says. If you see one roll, yell before it kisses a wall. Mags rounds her team. Short staff on the ward. She says, we'll sweep isolation, then help ER. Stick together. They nod, an old habit from harsher places. At the station, Linda pockets fresh film. Ruth checks her pocketbirds. Gigi flips her coin and pockets it without looking. Heads or tails. Linda asks. Yes, Gigi says. They pass the double doors into 6B. The air is colder, or maybe it's a story about ghosts who don't believe in thermometers. In room 2, a patient watches the ceiling tiles like a private sky. In room 5, the bed is stripped clean, tags still dangling. Down the hall, the clock ticks a sticky tick, as if wading through syrup. Harrow appears, coat immaculate, expression unbothered by the hour. He offers another chart with a neat correction. You should have signed this earlier, he says, polite as a closed door. Mag studies him the way a mechanic listens to an engine. We'll discuss in the morning, she says. He smiles, which looks like a warning wearing good manners. At the far end, a door behind the corridor clock rasps. Mags hears it. Tap, 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 pocket warning. Linda lifts her camera and flashes the hallway. The picture slides out and slowly goes into view. For women in white, the clock behind them, and, hard to tell, maybe a seam in the wall no one mentions. A call comes from the ER. Ruth goes first, Gigi at her shoulder, Linda after them. Mags last of the charts. The night swallows her chatter, a joke about vows. The clink of a coin, Ruth teaching Gigi to fold a crane without tearing the edges. Nothing dangerous. Nothing loud. 2 hours later, the nurse on duty buzzes the intercom from Mags. No answer. She buzzes again, calls the ER, checks the break room. She checks bathrooms, stairwell, the wrong places first because the right ones are too obvious to be true. No one has seen Mags, Linda, Ruth, or Gigi since they stepped into 6B for just a minute. Security reviews the logbook. No exit. Side doors locked from within. Loading bay empty. The dumbwaiter sits with its mouth shut. The laundry chutes agree to keep their secrets. Police arrive looking embarrassed to be puzzled. They ask for blood. There is none. They ask for footprints. The wax is too clean. They ask who was near the ward, and every answer comes with a shrug the size of a prayer. Sister Caldwell explains again about protocols. Dr. Harrow suggests exhaustion or a prank. Walt says the carts have a mind of their own, but they don't kidnap. The night collapses inward. The horseshoe's neon blinks and steadies, and blinks again, counting something no one can see. A janitor sweeps a corridor that refuses to be less empty. The clock over 6B ticks until it doesn't. The second hand shivers and stops at 2:17. Somewhere beyond the wall, where floor plans to get to look, something bumps. Soft at first, then surer. A laundry cart finds a seam and kisses it. Metal to plaster, a note you feel more than hear. The sound runs down the bones of the building and into the quiet, like a message taped under a desk. The corridor is empty. The door to 6B is shut. The clock reads 2:17 and will not move. In the distance, the cart taps the wall once more. Morning pushes through the broken blinds of St. Agnes Mercy. The police tape around 6B looks fresh even in a dead building. Techs in paper suits move like slow ghosts. The door with a hand-painted warning stands open now. A mouth that has told a secret and can't take it back. Alex King signs a log and steps in with a reporter's tote and a roll of caution in his shoulders. Alex King, gray line. He tells the uniform at the threshold. Gray what? Asks the older man in a city maintenance jacket. His name patch reads Walt. Gray line. It's a podcast. Right, your porkcast. Walt says, pleased with himself. My granddaughter made me listen. Lots of talking. Not enough pork. Alex smiles despite the smell of old metal and mouse. I'll try to season this one. Detective Sora Nakamura arrives without hurry. Hair tied back, badge clipped at her belt like punctuation. Nakamura, cold case. She says to the text, then to Alex, "You're the one who files Freedom of Information requests the way some people collect stamps. Everyone needs a hobby. Forensics first. Then hobbies," she says, already pulling on gloves. They stand before the little altar at the end of the ward. For white uniforms on hooks, badges dangling, the Super 8 camera in its leather case, the tin marked open when safe. A tech photographs everything, then asks Sora for permission. She nods. The lid pops. Inside, a film reel, wrapped in wax paper, and a small stack of Polaroids clipped with a paper clip gone orange with rust. Alex holds his breath while the images come up under a UV lamp. For nurses in crisp whites, backs to a corridor clock, the same yellow curtains. But there's something else. Behind them, to the right of the clock, the wall shows a thin vertical shadow, not frame, not trim. A seam. Where was this taken? Alex asks. Sora checks a faded blueprint pinned to a bore by the door. "No room here," she says, tracing a line with a capped pen. Just a corridor and structural wall. Then either the blueprint lies, Alex says, or the wall does. They need to see the film. There is no screen, so they borrow a white tablecloth from an evidence box and tape it to a row of bed frames. Walt, delighted to be useful, finds an outlet that still works in a core that is only mostly dead. The Super 8 projector coughs once, twice, and the bulb warms like a tiny sun. Alex feeds the reel with careful fingers. Film ticks into motion. No audio track, only the dry chatter of sprockets. Grain blooms. Light shivers. The first image is the 6B corridor, clean and bright as if the camera remembers the wax. Linda steps into frame first, grinning, blowing a kiss to whoever holds the camera. Ruth follows, calm, a gauze crane perched in her breast pocket, like a tiny passenger. Gigi walks backward, dragging a laundry cart with a showman's flourish. Mags brings up the rear, eyes everywhere. The camera tilts. It watches the cart roll toward the end of the hall. Gigi parks it under the clock and leans into the wall as if checking a loose tile. She glances into the lens, mouth set in a dare. Then she disappears. Simply slides sideways and is gone, as if the wall had a seam that opened like a curtain. On screen, Mag steps into close-up. She looks directly into the camera. Tap, tap, tap. Her finger touches the pocket of her apron 3 times. Then she brings the same finger to her lips. Silence. The image shakes. A thumb covers half the lens. For one frame, a narrow edge appears behind the clock, dark as a throat. Then the film cuts hard to an empty hallway. Walt whistles, then remembers his own rule. "Not that kind," he mutters. "Sorry. Roll it back," Sora says. They run it again, slower, stopping each few seconds with a stutter that puts dust into the air like snow. The same vanish, the same warning, the same suggestion of a door where no door should be. They pause the investigation long enough to move across the street for coffee and outlets. The Horseshoe Diner still burns its neon, half-lit and stubborn. Walt orders pancakes at 2 in the afternoon. "Breakfast is about faith," he tells Sora, who is drinking black coffee like a measurement. "What do you know about the tunnels?" she asks him. Walt wipes syrup from his mustache. Every hospital this old has steam tunnels. Pipes, wires, shortcuts for the lazy and the lonely, and lovers if they're fast. St. Agnes has a main line from the boiler to laundry. Used to be you could take a wrench, turn 2 valves, and dry your socks in 5 minutes with the heat coming off those pipes. Access points. Alex asks, notebook ready. Under 6B, 1. Walt says, laundry, 2. There's a cap down by the old loading dock, 2. City code would faint if it saw it now. Tomorrow, Sora says, we look. The day bends into paperwork. Sora called the archivist at City Records, who grants him a corner desk that smells like wet paper and good secrets. Alex schemes building permits from the 50s. Sora maps renovations with pencil lines that grow like veins. There in the edges, a notation for service tunnel, steam, connecting isolation 6B to laundry and on to loading dock south. Another wisp, a UX access, maintenance only, no drawing, no measurements, only a word. At dusk, they drive to the suburb where a convent sits behind tired trees. Sister Margaret Caldwell meets them in a small room that used to be a parlor and now is the color of pale tea. Even her apology for the plastic chairs feels official. We reopen 6B. Sora says, "We found items that suggest the area was sealed, not simply closed for contamination. We'd like to understand why." Caldwell's hands fold under her habit, every finger precise. "There was a mercury spill in 75, she says in the tone of someone reciting from a hymn book. A broken manometer, I believe. There were budget constraints. Sealing was considered safer than full abatement. Do you have documentation?" Alex asks. "Of course," she says, and produces memoranda, neat and dated. The type is crisp. The signature line looks like a road. Sora reads and reads again. The middle page has a different typeface, a slightly misaligned E that a detective's I can love. These were made the same week? Sora asks. "The same month," Caldwell replies. Smile. Umbrella. "What about the missing nurses?" Alex says. "Mags O'Leary, Linda Collins, Ruth Delgado, Gigi Russo." Caldwell's smile does not move. The city dealt with the tragedy as it saw fit. We kept the hospital open for the living. Outside, in the convent parking lot, Sora breathes cold air that tastes like the word stone. She's protecting something, Alex says. She's protecting many things, Sora says. Not all of them wrong. They stop by St. Bridget's, where Father Thomas Bell tends a silent church that smells like lemon oil. He is a small man inside a large sweater. Wars, he says after the third question, are not only fought with guns. Sometimes a war is a decision made at 2 a.m. I have seen people win those wars in silence. Do you remember confessions from October 1975? Sora asks. I remember the weight of them, he says. But the seal is the seal. Memory is unhelpful besides. Back at City Records the next morning, a clerk flutters toward them with bad news. Someone requested Box 18B, medical incidents. Last week, she says, they signed the ledger as H. Jones and returned it light. Your file is missing half a folder. It happens when people are careless. She looks truly sad. Careless, Sora repeats, tasting the word. Or careful. They descend into the tunnels with Walt as a cheerful Virgil. The flashlight beams fine peeling paint, and Val wheels the size of steering wheels. Pipes sweat and tick. The air breathes warm from the past. If you hear a whistle, Walt says, voice carrying, run from the steam, not the ghosts. Steam peels skin quick and doesn't bother to haunt you after. Alex points at a small door with a dented sign, dumbwaiter. There's your ghost elevator, he says. Only goes one way, Walt answers. Down. They pace out the distance under 6B. Walt taps the wall, in a rhythm learned with his knuckles. Hollow, solid, hollow again. Sora marks a chalk X where sound changes. There's a brick infill that looks newer than the rest, a scar that forgot to fade. No opening now, but the wall remembers it. Warrant first. Sora says, no shortcuts. Not even for the port cast? Walt asks, especially not for the port cast, she says, dry as dust, and Alex grins because boundaries have never sounded so friendly. They return to the ward as the sun slides out. Alex asks to run the film one more time for timing. Sora agrees. The tablecloth becomes a screen again. The machine clatters to life. Grain dances. The cart rolls. Gigi vanishes behind the panel, like a magician who hates applause. Mags gives her 3 taps, the oath of suspicion. then the finger to her lips. "Hold it," Sora says. Alex stops the reel with a touch so light the picture jitters, but stays. The frame shows a corridor with the clock at the top edge, the cart below, and there, a clean vertical line to the right of the clock, almost the color of shadow, except the shadow doesn't cast across the floor. It's a join, a door seam. Walt leans in until his breath fogs the light. Well, he says softly, as if in church, "I'll be damned politely." Sora takes a photo of the projection, then another from a second angle. She writes a note to herself in square block letters. When she speaks, her voice is calm enough to hold the room still. Tomorrow, she says, "I go to judge." We get a warrant to open that wall. The picture trembles in place, grain light, a door that pretended to be a wall for 45 years, and then freezes on a thin dark seam. The Horseshoe Diner remembers what people try to forget. Morning light hits the mint green booths and makes the chrome wink. A waitress with a bee-eye of the color of cinnamon leans on the counter and watches Alex and Sora spread blueprints across a sticky table. "You're asking about Dr. Harrow?" she says, topping off Walt's coffee until it threatens mutiny. Out there, she jerks a thumb toward the crumbling hospital, saying on TV, "In here," she taps the Formica. "Tyrant. Sent back eggs 3 times once." Imagine what he did with charts. "Memory is a biased witness," Sora says. "Sure," the waitress answers, "but a lot of us have the same bias." Walt slurps. "He tipped bad. That I remember wholly." They turn to the maps. Alex's fingers walk the pencil corridors like a chess player counting moves. Sora points with a pencil. Boiler room to laundry, laundry to loading dock, a sideline drawn faintly beneath 6B and labeled Serve Tiyuan, STM. A smaller note, almost shy, "A UX spur, mate." Only, that spur, Alex says, it ends nowhere. "Used to be a hatch," Walt replies. "We welded it shut in 76. Told it was for safety. That usually means lawyers." Sora folds the plans. "We verify. Paper first, then bricks." At the municipal depot, the air is 50% dust, 50% resignation. Boxes lean like tired readers under fluorescent eyes. Alex signs out 3 crates stamped St. Agnes. Admin. He sifts receipts, memos, cafeteria menus, an invoice for 47 mop heads. Buried in a box of celebrity magazines, the kind that swear a star married a Martian. His fingers find something that isn't gossip. A thin ledgery notebook tucked inside a 1975 issue. Columns march across its pages. Date, donor, amount, annotation. Many annotations are simple. Beds, linens, chapel roof. But every few pages a tidy phrase repeats. Complicated delivery, charity. The dates line up with nights when a maternity ward ran long. The amounts aren't small. They come from the same hands, over and over. Sora leans over his shoulder. "People donate after tragedies," she says. "Coincidence is a lazy word," Alex replies. "Careful," she says, but her eyes are doing math. If babies were being mislabeled, complicated could mean something else. She doesn't say illegal adoptions. She lets the possibility sit and breathe. They visit the convent again. Sister Caldwell leads them to a small office scented with lemon cleaner and old paper. She produces a contamination memorandum with ritual neatness. "Mercury spill," she repeats. "Sealing was a responsible option." Sora flips the pages and stops. This middle sheet, she observes, tapping the corner, different typewriter. CD, slightly higher, and the margin shifts a 1/4 inch. Secretaries were not machines. Caldwell says, a tiny smile curving like a paper cut. "We used what we had." "Convenient," Sora murmurs. Caldwell folds her hands. "Detective, hospitals are lifeboats with holes. You plug what you can." At St. Bridget's, Father Thomas Bell is dusting hymnals. He looks at the badge, then at Alex's microphone, and sighs like opening a heavy book. "We're cataloging community audio, Alex lies politely. The priest's shoulders fall in a way that says he was waiting to be forgiven for something small. He opened the cabinet and takes out a shoebox of cassette tapes labeled in neat black marker. October 12th to 19th, 1975. Homilies. I won't discuss confessions, he says, but I talked to my people from the pulpit that week. Perhaps my words are better than my memory. Sora signs for the loan, leaves a card, and thanks him like a daughter. Back in the tunnels. The world narrows to heat and iron. Walt hands out N95s that expired during another presidency. Works fine, he says. Dust isn't picky. Pipes line the walls like arteries. Valves sit with their mouths open, waiting to be turned. The beam from Walt's flashlight combs the bricks. Sora's chalk marks a timeline on stone. OLD mortar, new patch, weld seam. Something flutters when they pass a vent. Alex reaches up and tugs. A small crane falls into his palm, stiff with time, made of gauze folded into stubborn wings. The knot is neat, the kind that knows what it's doing. Ruth, Sora says, soft as a diagnosis. Leave it in evidence, Walt advises, though his face is turned careful. You don't want ghosts thinking you took their hobby. They push deeper. A narrow grate opens to a pocket of space. Alex aims his light and sees a glint under grime. He slides his fingers through and fishes out a gold ring. It is slim, nicked by time, and carries 3 tiny scratches on the underside in a pattern like a clumsy constellation. Walt whistles, then catches himself. Steam, not ghost, he corrects on reflex. Alex digs a Polaroid from the envelope of copies he made earlier. Linda laughing, her hand up, the ring flashing, 3 little scratches visible where the band catches the light. He holds ring and photo side by side, and the pass clicks into place like a seatbelt. His throat does something he does not let it finish. Linda was here, Sora says. It isn't discovery. It is confirmation that hurts. Humor arrives like a medicine with sugar. A rat strolls into the edge of the flashlight beam and freezes with the insulted dignity of a landlord. Ah, Walt says, Carl, employee of the month. Carl blinks, decides they are uninteresting, and proceeds about his business. He never steals, only inspects, Walt adds. Very ethical. Ethics elsewhere are less clear. That night, an alarm goes off at the municipal depot. A back window is cut, a light flicked on, a stack of papers rifled. By morning, the clerk's mouth trembles as she tells Sora, the Polaroid you checked yesterday, the originals are gone. Alex opens his bag and pulls out his dupes. I made copies, he says, not triumphantly. Precaution feels too much like prophecy. Someone else knows what we know, Sora says, or thinks they do. She spends the afternoon on the phone with a judge, the kind who keeps Latin maxims in the top drawer with the antacids. By evening, she has a partial warrant. They can open the suspected false wall adjacent to the corridor clock in Ward 6B. The rest, the whole ward, the closets, the ducts, requires a longer argument. Half a key, Walt says, better than a bobby pin. They break for the diner again. The waitress plants plates with a maternal thud. You look like people about to do something no one will thank you for. She says, want extra syrup? Sora smiles with only a quarter of her mouth. Always. Night drops early, as if Detroit sky has somewhere else to be. They go back under with 2 flashlights and hubris. The plan is simple. Confirm the welded seam, mark the exact line above. Avoid dying. Rule 1. Walt says from the front, if you hear a whistle, it's a warning. Steam is a polite killer. It tells you first. If it screams, you did something dumb. If it doesn't scream at all, you did something dumber. Comforting, Alex says, they pass the chalk X from yesterday and take a left into a constricted dogleg. The air is heavier here, like past breath. Sora checks her watch and the map and her patience. All 3 agree they're close. Walt's flashlight sputters. He smacks it, old technician spell, and it steadies for the length of a heartbeat. Then the light dies. Darkness folds over them quick as a blanket. "Hold," Sora says calmly. Her own beam snaps on. The tunnel shrinks to a cone of white. Something in the pipe above them lets out a long, thin whistle that climbs into a keening. A seam along the valve wheel beads with bright wet, then spools into a jet as thin as wire. The heat in the air tightens like a fist. "Steam," Walt says, voice suddenly very small. "Back. Now." The whistle becomes a voice you can feel on your teeth. The jet wavers, testing the room like a fingertip looking for skin. The whistle climbs until it becomes a blade. Steam spits from the valve seam, a bright wire of heat that sketches the air. Vision collapses to a tunnel of white. "Back," Walt says, but Sora is already under the wheel, sleeves shoved up. "Alex, wrench." He jams the wrench onto the frozen hand wheel. The metal is slick, hot through gloves. Sora grips the spokes. "Quarter turn," she says. "Slow. If it screams, stop." It screams. She freezes. The jet needles a wall and draws a bright line across tire mortar. The tunnel fills with cloud, taste of iron. Walt stands behind them, one hand on Alex's shoulder, the other on Sora's belt, anchoring them. "Again," Sora says. Alex leans, the wrench bites, the hand wheel grudges a fraction. The scream softens to a hiss, to a whisper. Steam thins. Heat lingers. Sora taps the valve stem. "Seated." Walt lets out a small laugh. Steam is polite if you're polite back. As cloud clears, the tunnel shows what the heat underlined. A hairline crack in the mortar, wet and vertical. Sora drags her gloved finger down and brings away rust grit. "That wasn't there before," Alex says. "It was," Walt answers. "We just couldn't see it until the tunnel breathed on it." He knocks with his knuckles. Hollow. 2 bricks left, solid. He maps the wall by sound. "Here." The crack frames a metal door skinned in brick. At waist height, a weld has been ground flat. Someone hit a hinge and trusted dust. "Ramos Seago," Walt says, blind spur. "We sealed it after 75. Weld and forget." "No one forgot," Sora says. They just hoped no one would find the memory. The latch is fused, but Russ likes persuasion. Walt makes a lever from a length of strut. Alex braces. Sora counts them in. The mortar gives with a crunchy sigh. The door opens 6 inches, then a foot. Sora puts her shoulder to it and shoves. Beyond is a narrow service corridor that turns once and dies in a niche the size of a closet. In that closet, asleep under lint, sits a laundry cart. Chrome-dulled pewter, wheels sunk in their own dust. Someone draped it with old blankets, the hospital kind that try to be worn by being heavy. They peel a blanket back. Underneath, baby blankets, folded tight and tied with colored tags, red, yellow, blue. Silence for 3 breaths. Then Walt, softly. "They were staging here." "Theory," Sora says, even as the picture develops. "Not proof." Alex crouches. The floor keeps records away honest clerks do. Caster tracks are from the niche and lead south, a pale groove where weight met time. He follows it toward laundry. "If you move a cart the same way every night," he says, "the floor learns a route." Floor's a better witness than most, Walt says. They chalk the frame, photograph everything. Sora radios the surface, voice level. "Hidden service door with cart and items possibly linked to 1975. Valve stabilized." "Define no hazard," dispatch says. "Not dying," Sora replies. "Today." Upstairs, they rinse at a slop sink. Alex spreads city maps on a gurney. He traces a path from 6B to laundry, then to loading dock south. Outside the fence, the road runs to MacArthur Bridge. "The dock cameras then," he asks. 1975? Sora says, "Your cameras were probably named Frank and 8 donuts." Logs, then parking citations, security notebooks. They dig. A loading dock note lists a VW bus. Cream-top red body, parked near the south gate at 3 o'clock 3 nights that week. A guard drew a flower beside the plate. Combi, Walt says. Great for bands and bad ideas. Alex writes the plate on a card and clips it blue. Back in the tunnels, the air feels different. Walt walks like a teacher on the first day. Let's clear a myth, he says. Steam will scald you in under a second. It's physics, not feelings. Hauntings, if they exist, ruin sleep, not skin. New hires mix the two and panic at pipe noises. Don't. If it whistles, respect it. If it whispers your name, get more sleep. Which category is a door that pretends to be a wall? Alex asks. That's called administration. Walt says with Professor Gravity. Sora snorts once, a pencil snapping politely. Sora has already filed for an emergency order. Concealed void, steam incident, structural risk. Judges are human about liability. One signed before dinner. The court clerk stamped lands times. Each thud final in the hallway. Open only what was sealed. The order says, limit to the identified false wall in 6B. Half a green light. Alex says, it's the half we need, Sora answers. Morning brings a small circus. City engineers in hard hats, forensics, a videographer, a bailiff to keep everyone behaving. The false wall waits at the corridor's end. Sora read the order. Walt checks stud with magnet and chalks the safest bite. The crew sets a vacuum saw to the seam. When the blade bites, the sound is a high keen. Thus tries for lungs, but Hepavacs drink it. The panel tilts. Hands catch it and lay it down like a patient. Behind is air where structure should be. A short room. Equipment in ghost shapes under sheets. The smell is hospital plus cellar. Alex pulls a drape. A surgical chair sits in the center, like someone forgot a question half-assed. On the far wall, an armoire squats metal institutional, locked with a corroded hasp. Sora photographs carefully. We open the cabinet, she says for the record. Potential hazard unknown. Walt, you want the honors? Alex asks. I will not be described as a man who opened the cursed cabinet. Walt says, stepping back a dignified foot. He hands Sora a pry bar like he's awarding a medal. 2 techs brace it. Sora eases the bar into the hasp and levers slow. The metal complains. The hasp snaps with a clean little ping. For a breath, nothing. Then the right door surrenders half an inch. The left follows with a sigh. A dry smell leaks out. The cabinet releases. Something inside shifts its weight against the door in gravity. Faithful, dull, does the rest. A lab coat draped over shape gives way. Bones spill with quiet authority onto the linoleum, clicking once like a polite knock. A jaw arcs, lands, and spins until a crazed badge stops it. The badge is green, letters bitten by time, but still legible in the cone of light. Dr. Edwin Harrow. Silence now. Dust hangs like a sentence waiting for its verb. Walt crosses himself in a way that suggests he hasn't in years. Sora lifts her gaze from the bones of the chair to the lamp, to the space where a wall pretended for decades. She steps back enough that her voice can find air. Secure the room, she says. The jawbone rests beside the badge like punctuation at the end of a long, ugly sentence. Somewhere above, the clock in 6B ticks once, remembers to stop. The medical examiner works in silence while cameras hum, and the air tastes like old metal. He kneels beside the bones with a small light and a patience that looks like prayer. Left temporal bone, he says at last, tapping a crack that runs like lightning across the skull. Old fracture. Classic fall onto a hard edge. No bullet. No blade. No ligature. He bled inside. He died. Time fits the 70s, but the room preserved him like a jar. He closes his kit, as if tucking the decade back in. They shoot angles. They bag the badge. They sweep for trace. When the cabinet shelves are clear enough to see, Sora's light finds a metal box pushed back, corners wrapped in brown tape, a label like a whisper. For whoever finds this. M. O'Leary. Alex looks at Sora. Sora looks at the evidence tech. The tech photographs the box from 3 sides and floats it down onto a clean table with reverence. Sora cuts the tape like a surgeon, one smooth pull each side. The lid size open. Inside, a stack of reel-to-reel tapes, a folded note tucked under a rubber band, and a typed inventory with holes where a line should be, missing entries, blank spaces, dates that jump by a record with a scratch. Alex's hand hovers over the nearest reel the way a swimmer hovers over cold water. "We need to hear it," he says. "We need to catalog it," Sora replies. She pulls on fresh gloves. Every item gets a log number, a location, a time. The note lasts. It is on hospital letterhead, creased twice, the ink a touch faded. She reads it out loud, because words change when you keep them to yourself. "If you found this, time has finally decided we deserve help." It begins in a firm hand. Do not trust forms without faces. Do not leave babies where money can find them first. Ask the clock for what the walls won't offer. Mags O'Leary. Alex looks up. Ask the clock. They go back to the corridor with the stubborn clock that stopped at 2:17. Walt fetches a kit. He hasn't needed since asbestos was still a rumor. Sora dusts the panel behind the clock. Light puffs of powder. A brush like a tickle. Latent ridges appear on a small lever no one thought was a lever. She photographs, lifts, then pushes. The mechanism sighs with old grease and better memories. A panel slides open with the reluctant grace of a secret taught to behave. Inside the cavity, a small ring of keys tied with string and a narrow envelope. The letter inside is typed, the kind of font that bites the paper. At the top, temporary registry. Feed at destination. Below, lines of carbon copy naming only colors and times and weights. Red, yellow, blue, 241, 305, 322. Some lines are blank, cut away, their ghosts still pressing the page beneath. Feed at destination means file it there. Alex says, "Not here." Means move quietly. Sora says, "This was never meant to live in St. Agnes's records." She seals the envelope and the keys in evidence sleeves. Then, as if remembering the room breathes, she exhales. "We split," she says. "You chase paper. I chase people." They take turns with uncomfortable truths. At the convent, Sister Caldwell meets them in the same pale room and sits with her hands like folded wings. Sora lays the typed line where the light can touch it. Temporary registry. Sora says, "Who were you feeding?" Caldwell looks at the word destination for a long time. "Hospitals are for the sick," she says finally. "Some institutions are for the unwanted." A pause. "We protected those nobody wished to protect." "From whom?" Alex asks. "From being erased," Caldwell says, and if it's an answer, it's the kind that leaves doors ajar. She stands and returns with a small tin she claims is for embroidery. Inside is a key that matches the ones on the clock, and a slip of paper with a name blacked out. So completely the paper is more ink than pulp. "I have nothing else for you," she says. "Do not mistake lack of proof for lack of harm." At St. Bridget's, Father Thomas has polished pews until they shine like memory. He produces a second shoebox he insists he found behind hymnals, though the dust says someone placed it gently. 2 more tapes lie inside, labels neat. Staff meeting, October 17th, and personal, TB. "I will not violate the seal," he says. "But sermons are public. Meetings are administrative. My initials are on the second. I assume I found courage in a recorder on the same afternoon." They leave the church with the strange weight of given things. In the car, Alex stares at the street and sees a hall of doors, some with some brick, some in faces. "Let's say," he starts, "they didn't vanish. Let's say they chose to. That isn't legal," Sora says. "It might be moral," Alex counters. "Morality doesn't keep blood off floors," she replies, and then gentler. "But sometimes it keeps it off the wrong ones." They drive to the diner because when the world tips you go put your elbows on something that won't. Walt orders pie he doesn't need. If this goes sideways, he says, I will accept house arrest at that booth by the window. I'll sign in daily. Coffee as my bracelet. Noted, Sora says, and manages half a smile. Back at the makeshift lab in a conference room that still smells like chalk, they build a listening post out of borrowed gear. The reels sit like quiet planets on the table, each labeled in Mags's hand. Harrow, witness, 6B night clock, proof. Sora tests channels, checks power, log settings. Alex sets up a mic for narration because he can't not. Before they press play, the story pushes back in fragments, like a film trying to start in your head. 1975 in hard light. Mags and 6B, jaw set, shoulders square, Harrow framed by that surgical chair, immaculate even in anger. Gigi sliding the bolt on the 6B door, coin in her teeth, eyes laughing at fear. Ruth lifting blankets, counting, folding, tying color tags with a competence that makes panic look silly. Linda adjusting the super, 8 whispering now, as if the word could pin time to the floor. Only the present makes noise. Tape pulling off a spool, switches clicking on, the small motor of the deck turning, because it was designed to. Fingerprint you found on the clock lever. Alex says, eyes still in 1975. Any chance it's Mags? Partial, fragile, old, Sora answers. Enough for a maybe, not for a courtroom. But it puts a hand where we needed one. Sometimes a maybe is a map, he says. Sora lines up the first reel, Harrow witness, and threads it from left to right, across heads at red magnetic iron like stories. She sits. She breathes once. Twice. Ready? Alex asks. Almost. Sora takes out the inventory again and runs a finger down the missing lines. Someone removed names. She says, but left colors and times. That's not erasing. That's disguising. Red, yellow, blue, Alex says. He thinks of the blanket in the cart, the chalk line on the floor, the way a city learns paths its records forget. Roll it, Sora says. Alex lowers the heads. The tape hums. For a heartbeat, there's only the ocean sound of old magnetism remembering how to speak. Then a man's voice shivers out of the past. Tense, educated, afraid of itself. I can explain, it says. Sora lifts a finger to the tiny red light on the recorder. Recording, she says, voice flat to keep the room from losing its nerve. Alex's fingertip finds the rec button and presses. The red light steadies. The reels turn. The room holds its breath for a truth that took 45 years to find air. Tape turns. The room holds still. Harrow's voice arrives from 45 years away, sandpaper by fear. I can explain, he says, and he tries. He explains charity funds and shortages, and the pressure of keeping a hospital open when money wants close it. Then the words slide. Some mothers have nothing. Some babies are better off elsewhere. It is not theft. It is placement. It is mercy. Mags's voice cuts in, steady and unsmiling. You wrote, stillborn and took them, she says. You changed charts, swapped tags, moved infants through laundry. We found the cart, doctor. Metal clinks on the tape. A door bolt shoots. Gigi's laugh is a blade. Clock's locked, she says. No one in, no one out. Ruth counts softly over her. 1, 2, 3, like a heartbeat. Cloth rustles. Blankets ready. She says, red, yellow, blue. Linda's voice is closer to the microphone, breath skimming the heads. Frame's good, she whispers. Sun hits the hall at 2:10. We have light. Harrow tries a sermon. You don't know the donors, he says. You don't know the gratitude. Do you know what a private adoption fee can fund? A wing, a whole wing. A conscience. Mag says, try funding that. Another voice enters, lower, tired and disciplined. Sister Caldwell. She doesn't waste time on scolding. Tell me what exactly you discovered. she says. 3 infants, Mags answers. Paperwork says 1 died, 2 moved to neonatal for oxygen. Neonatal never saw them. The cart went to laundry. From there, nowhere on paper. Elsewhere, Harrow says. I said elsewhere. You said money, Linda answers, sharp suddenly. The world hears her lose patience for maybe the first time. Caldwell breathes like a woman weighing a bridge. If we call the police, she says, the babies disappear into a court where people with money make choices. If we do nothing, Dr. Harrow continues, we need a third option. A sin, Harrow says. A necessary one, Caldwell replies. A sin to save. The tape records movement. A chair scraping. A crash that makes Sora's hand flinch over the stop button. There's a hollow sound of skull on metal. A man's breath yo-yoing into the wrong rhythm. The mess of a body choosing horizontal. Gigi swears in French. Linda gasps and then bites it back. Ruth says, pulse, like her hands are already there. Mag speaks to no one and everyone. He's breathing, she says. He won't forever. We do not have hours. Caldwell's tone is a cold road. You will seal this room, she says. You will call a contamination. I will write the memo. We will lock Rod in a cabinet the way he locked lives in a cart. Then you will take the infants and you will leave. Leave. Linda asks. Disappear, Caldwell says. Now. Be found when safe is true. There's the clack of the clock's hidden lever. Keys jingle. Paper tears. Ruth calls colors and weights. Red, 6 pounds, 10 ounces. Yellow, 5'4". Blue, 6'2". I'll tie a thread to this one. His tag keeps slipping. Thread color? Linda asks. Too practical cry. Blue, Ruth says. He'll carry the sky with him. Mags whispers, almost to the tape. Temporary registry. Feed at destination. Typing clacks somewhere else. Someone writes the list Sora now has in evidence bags. The one with gaps where names used to be. Footsteps. Wheels. The tiny breath of a newborn, magnified by history into thunder. The tape catches door frames and hallways and the whine of a dumbwaiter that will not help because it only understands going down. Tunnel. Walt mutters the room, not to the tape. On the reel, they lift the cart. Gigi takes point. Linda films whenever both hands aren't needed. Ruth hums to keep the smallest lungs from forgetting how to work. Mags does what chiefs do, the thing most likely to get them all to a later. Caldwell stays. I will lock behind you, she says, and the clip in Sora's bag hears those words through time like an oath. The sound changes. Pipes begin to speak. Steam breathes in walls. Valves tick. The wheels of the cart bounce over seams. Someone, probably Gigi, makes up a song about laundry being the safest transportation system in Detroit. Then night air, a door that opens to a dock. The tape hears lake wind and the far comfort tires on distant asphalt. Linda says lights, and then, smiling, mercy. A VW bus coughs into being their combi. Engine a hymn to bad engineering. Go, Mag says. Leave the tapes. Leave the list. Leave the keys and the clock. Leave me the mess. What about us? Ruth asks, a tremor under her steadiness. You'll not die under his paperwork. Mag says, not tonight. The reel runs on, then slaps its tail, and the machine clicks to a stop. In the sudden quiet, the room feels crowded by people not in it. No one talks first. Sora writes with square letters on a card. Inventory equals colors. Scheme equals adoptions. Cause equals fall. Then she sets the pen down like a badge. Play the next, Alex whispers. They do. The staff meeting tape holds only the clash of routine, budgets, supplies, a line about security lapses and laundry. The personal. TB cassette is a priest telling his people that a sin done to stop a poison is not the same as a sin done to drink it. The last reel is Mag's. Not in person. No. She left only her handwriting and a stubborn voice that somehow squeezed itself between other people's words. A short letter, likely written days later and left in Caldwell's hands. "We are not heroes," it says. "We are women who couldn't sleep beside a door we knew was wrong. We split and we kept quiet. If you're reading this, 2 of us are gone. Their names change them into someone safe. May that safety be their headstone. Ruth will have left notes with the sisters. Gigi will have crossed the border and learned to love Frost. I will be here until I am not. Do not try to make the ending tidy. Just make the middle kinder." Sora prints a final card. Mag's letter. She sits back. "We close." She says, not to the case, but to the part you can indict. Her report is a careful bridge. Manner of death for Harrow. Involuntary manslaughter by fall, with post-mortem concealment. Conspiracy to obstruct. Posthumous for the nurses. Protective action under extreme necessity. Refer to the City Council for posthumous commendation and to the county for adoption record inquiry. It is a kind of official language that lets a door open without cracking the building. What about Caldwell? Alex asks. Complicity in the deception, Sora says, and in the salvation. Statutes of limitation are strange friends, and repentance is a fact. They return to the inventory list. Alex runs his finger down the ghosted carbons until he stops. Boy number 17, blue thread. Wait time. The word blue looks like it was typed harder than the rest, as if someone wanted it to press through all copies. He stares long enough that Sora becomes gentler than truth. "What are you seeing?" she asks. "My mother kept a box," he says. Baby bracelet. Hospital note. She always said there was a blue thread tied to my ankle when social services gave me over. A nurse must have felt sorry for me. That's what she said. And maybe a nurse did, Sora answers, because a nurse wanted you to be found by the right people. The room doesn't tilt. It steadies. Alex pulls his phone and moves to the window because some calls you make looking at the sky. "Mom," he says when a line picks up, "when I was a baby, was there really a blue thread?" Silence. Not the bad kind. The kind that holds something fragile and true. Then his mother, voice thinner and brighter all at once. "There was honey. I cut it and kept it. I never knew why it mattered. It just did." Alex thanks her without explaining. He hangs up and leans his forehead to the glass. Outside, the hospital squats, patient as stone. Inside, his chest is a new thing and refuses labels. Days roll, and the city learns to say the nurses' names again. At the Horseshoe Diner, a small memorial goes up in the corner by the pie case. For Polaroid swell to frames, the white's gone creamy with age. Under glass, a tiny gauze crane folds shadow and light into stubborn wings. People leave notes. "My mother, my aunt, someone we should have known sooner." Walt stands before it, hat in hand. "It's podcast," he tells Alex, eyes wet and amused. "Not porkcast. I have been saying it wrong on purpose long enough." He squeezes Alex's shoulder. "This one will be a good one, kid." Caldwell comes, too, without a habit this time. Just a coat and a face that has decided on an honest winter. She lays one of Mags's letters at the frame, then steps back. "We are not heroes," she reads quietly, "but sometimes we get the right kind of lost." She leaves before anyone can ask her to explain a doctrine to people who don't need one. Sora files the last paperwork and turns a key on the evidence locker. "No perfect endings," she says to the empty room. "Only better middles." She recommends the city rename the 6B corridor for the 4. The council argues about signs and budgets, and then says yes because some votes are easier than they look. The final shot belongs to the place that started it. 6B stands clean now, the false wall removed, the air ordinary. The camera backs away as a maintenance man. Maybe Walt, maybe anyone, pulls the door until the latch kisses a frame. Before it closes, a hand slips out and leaves a blue paperclip on the wood. It shines absurdly against the old varnish. The latch clicks. The clock above remembers 2:17, and then, briefly, dares to tick. Magsa's voice from the letter climbs into silence like a rope. "If no one believes you," she wrote, "hide the truth where it can grow in time." The hallway receives the words and keeps walking.